It is time to talk more about our big product launch for this event. The vitamin D test that will reveal your personal vitamin D status, and zinoshine Plus, which will help you maintain or improve it. But first, a little story. In Japanese mythology, Amaterasu hid in a cave after becoming angry with her brother. When most hide in a cave, there is no issue for the world at large. So we can go, it's okay, you can be angry and you can stay in the cave, come out when you calm down. But in this case, Amaterasu happened to be the goddess of the sun. When she hid, the world plunged into darkness and chaos, and the first winter began. To lure her back and once again bring light into the world, other gods, known in Japan as kami, threw a grand party. The plan worked. Amaterasu became curious about the noise outside and eventually returned to end the first winter. This story gives a hint why we have decided to focus on vitamin D as a next step for our test-based strategy. For 1 billion people worldwide, Amaterasu is still in the cave. These people do not get enough sunlight on a daily basis to have sufficient levels of vitamin D. The question then becomes, are you one of those people? Am I? Our new vitamin D test will give you this answer. The test will guide us if we need more exposure to Amaterasu, that is vitamin D, or if she gives us the amount we need. Ida did a great presentation yesterday about the importance of vitamin D and how it supports our body. I will not repeat her, but I will stress a couple of things before I go into detail about how to take the test and what you will find on our brand new test site. Vitamin D has many functions in the body, as it supports a normal immune function to help us stay healthy, and it supports our bone and muscle function to enable us to stay active throughout our life. The sun is the best natural source of vitamin D, but you can get vitamin D from some foods as well as from supplements. Keep in mind that lifestyle, biological variances such as age and skin color, as well as seasonal variations in vitamin D uptake from the sun make our vitamin D status very individual. This is all a bit complicated, and this is why you will find all the information you need explained in detail on zinsinotest.com. Vitamin D is also a common deficiency not only because of these different factors just mentioned, but because people are not aware that they are deficient, and therefore they do not make the necessary changes to remedy it. So, we understand that vitamin D is important to us, and we understand that there are big differences between individuals and vitamin D uptake. How do we then go about it? In short, we test, adjust intake of vitamin D, test again to see if we have reached optimal levels, adjust again if necessary, and so on. What do we then measure? There are different methods to assess stores of vitamin D in our bodies, and we have gone for the best, a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. It is the best way to monitor vitamin D levels as it measures the serum 25-OHD, also called calcidiol, in our blood. It reflects all three sources of vitamin D from food, supplements, and skin synthesis. The test uses the dry blood spot technique and is analyzed by Vita's Analytical Services in Norway, with more than 25 years of analytical experience. Since the test result will guide us, it's important to take the test correctly. You therefore find a detailed explanation on how to take the test both on zinsinotest.com and in the instructions for use accompanying every test kit. There are a couple of things that I would like to take the time to highlight now that I have your attention. Number one, as with balance test, wash your hands with warm water and dry them before taking the test. Warm hands increase blood flow, and washing them removes hand cream that can interfere with the test result. 2. To get an accurate blood sample, it is also important not to touch the sample areas on the sample paper with your fingers. Number 3, for a good sample, and this is probably the most important one, is that we need one big drop in each circle. If the first drop is not enough, you can drip a second drop of blood directly after the first one, but no more than 2. This is, according to Ritas, because more drops and longer time between the drops gives the first drop of blood time to oxidate before the next drops hit the paper, which interferes with the quality of the blood. Lastly, to make sure you have gotten enough blood, check that the blood has penetrated the back of the sample paper. When the test has been analyzed and you receive your result, you can expect the familiar look and feel that you have gotten accustomed to from our balance test. Based on our Cincino vitamin D guidelines, in combination with details from your answers to the questions you hopefully answered when first registering your test code, you will receive recommendations whether to raise, maintain, or lower your vitamin D status, as well as your current vitamin D status presented in either nanomole per liter or nanogram per milliliter, depending on your preference. To clarify this, say for example that a person, let's call him Colin, is deficient. He lives in the UK and has stated that he takes other products containing a total of 30 micrograms of vitamin D. The test result would then include the following. His status presented in nanomole per liter with a headline stating he is deficient. An explanation how his status may affect his health. A recommendation to double check the current amount taken of vitamin D to make sure he truly takes what he thinks he is taking. And this is important for him to understand his vitamin D needs in the future. A recommendation to supplement in order to raise his status to an optimal level. To make this easy, we have even included a link to a table that explains how much vitamin D our different products contain. He will also be linked to an explanation of what food he can eat that contain vitamin D. A recommendation that since Colin should make changes in his intake of vitamin D to raise his status, he should retest himself after 120 days to verify he has reached an optimal level. And lastly, an explanation that since Colin lives in the UK, he can benefit from the sun during the summer months. But for more than 6 months of the year, vitamin D from the sun will not be enough. So he there also gets a link to an explanation on how to utilize sun rays during the months the sun can be sufficient for him. This information is plenty for Colin and should be enough for him to make adjustments. But in case he wants even more information, we have a whole section on the webpage on how to optimize his vitamin D status. In this section, he will find, for example, the explanation to our Cincino guidelines, as well as different risk factors influencing uptake. Colin makes adjustment to his supplementation of vitamin D, and after 120 days he checks his status again to make sure his level now is sufficient. Because that his new test shows he is sufficient, he maintains vitamin D intake and after another 120 days checks again to verify he is still within an optimal range. Why he continues to test is because that there are so many factors influencing vitamin D that a continuous monitoring of his status is the best way to keep an optimal status throughout his life. Since we are so very different in our response to vitamin D, our focus when developing the product zinoshine Plus was to introduce a product that can be tailored to individual nutritional needs. This is the reason each tablet contains 12.5 micrograms of vitamin D3 and not more. In true Zincino fashion, we made it all natural and decided to use a vegan source of vitamin D3 so that the product can be taken in spite of nutritional preferences. This source of vitamin D3 is taken from wild harvested lichen grown on mountainsides. To give the product that extra spark, we included broad spectrum magnesium to help reduce tiredness and fatigue. Something us living in the northern parts of Europe know is very helpful during those cold and dark winter months. And by the way, the person I referred to, called Colin from the UK, was inspired by our own Colin Robertson. Colin is just such an easy name to say, and UK is a perfect example that you can utilize sun rays some parts of the year, but not others. But to be very clear, the test result is purely fictional and has nothing to do with him personally. So, to sum up this presentation, we have launched the following: a vitamin D test that will reveal your personal vitamin D status, and zinoshine Plus, which will help you maintain or improve it. To help you guide you, we have developed a test site that you reach on zincinotest.com with all the information you need to optimize your vitamin D status. Monitoring vitamin D is a continuous process and uptake varies greatly within the population. Therefore, we recommend testing yourself every 120 days. Me and the product team at Zincino are with this launch excited to continue the journey of science and test-based nutrition together with you.